Good evening, everyone. This is the September 21, 2021 meeting of the Harbor Management Commission. I'm Kim Taylor. Present in the room are Mark Foster, Harry French, Jack Hirschler, Jeff Stedman, and myself. On the phone, Eric Sunman, Sam Cargill, Ted Schwartzman, Doug Metchik. Betty, I believe, is there somewhere, and let's begin this meeting. Our first order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. So we've got a flag in the corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. We have minutes to approve. Our July 20 minutes have been distributed. They're embedded in the minutes, the agenda. Can I have a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Mark has moved.
Second.
Jack seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anyone there want to vote on the minutes?
Did you hit star after you recorded? Hit record?
The recording has started. Have we lost contact with people on the phone?
I think we're still here.
Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, excellent. We have the minutes from the August 10 special meeting. Yes. Can I have a motion to accept them as written?
I'll make a motion.
Who's that?
Eric.
Eric, thank you. Eric moves. Can I have a second? Jack seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay. And the last set of minutes is our regular meeting on August 17. Can I have a motion to accept those minutes?
Okay, this time I'll do it.
Mark has moved. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Harry seconds. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay. Thank you all for that. Moving right along to my report. We, on August 16th, received as you can see on the agenda, we're copied on an email that Deep sent to the representatives of residents on Riverside Avenue, transmitting a license for a new dock there in Ash Creek. On August 19th, we sent an email to all South Anchorage mooring holders that they should prepare for the tropical storm Henri. A couple days thereafter, on August 23rd, we had exchanged emails with Travis Herman, who reported that he had moved 4 boats inside the harbor at the request of owners, and I thanked him for taking care of that for us. On August 24th, the Commission received an email from Stephen Delco asking that a no dogs allowed signs be posted at Lower Wharf, and we'll have a little more on our responsibilities vis-a-vis Lower Wharf, and particularly the new property that was donated to the town in 2019 under new business. On August 30, I exchanged emails with Jim Bradley, who has agreed to help us transmit information that might be helpful to the country club in connection with our efforts to dredge the outer harbor. And on September 8th, I sent by email a letter to David Blatt of Deep, requesting comment on on our understanding of littoral rights and public access to the waters, as this was a follow-up to our resolution in our special meeting on August 10th. And I believe all of you received a copy of that letter from Betty when she transmitted the agenda to you. So we have not yet heard back from Mr. Blatt, and certainly as soon as we do, we will circulate that letter as well. I've rearranged things just a little bit tonight. Originally, we had expected a couple of non-commission members who participated in the search for the harbor master to attend our meeting this evening, and unfortunately, both of them, Cheryl Beacock, who was a former commissioner and was a great help in keeping the harbor master search committee organized and on track, and Devin Santa, who represented the yacht club, neither one of them were able to attend this evening. That's why I had originally moved the discussion of the committee's work to this first part of our old business. And I think that I'll leave this order in place, and because the commission needs to hear about personnel matters and a discussion of the candidates who applied for the harbor master position, we should do that in executive session. And executive session means that there are no members of the public present. So in order to move into executive session, I need a vote from the commissioners, a motion, and then a vote to adjourn to executive session. There will be no decisions made, no actions taken, no motions during the executive session. We will leave the executive session and then vote on the candidates, to approve the candidates' names that will be transmitted to the governor for his action, and he's the one responsible for appointing the harbor master. So could I have a motion to move into executive session to discuss the harbor? Harry has moved.
To move into executive session.
Harry has moved for the commission to move into executive session, and Mark has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone?
Aye.
Okay. We are now then in executive.
And commissioners who are not present at this time will not be...
Commissioners who are not present will not, unfortunately, not be able to participate in the discussion.
But if they were to arrive during the time that we're having this discussion, they certainly could participate if they happen to be in town.
Right. If they wanted to arrive at the Old Town Hall, second floor conference room while we're having that discussion, they can certainly participate.
But not possible to only have the public not here, but
right.
have the commissioners here.
We can't have the public listening in, and we're on the phone. So with that, commissioners, if you are close by, please come. If not, you will be on hold until the executive session has concluded. So this is Kim Taylor again. We have exited the executive session. It's 5:14. Because we have so many commissioners on the phone, let me just review quickly exactly what the committee, the search committee's work was, and then we will listen to and make a decision about the committee's recommendation. The committee, who was Cheryl Beacock, Devin Santa, Jack Hirschler, Harry French, and myself, we started our work by putting together a job summary of the position, which had never existed before. We then we had a plan of how we wanted to proceed, and we ran that plan by the town's human resources consultant and the First Select Woman's office, and got their okay for the process. The process was that we posted the job summary. It was up for about 3 weeks. We had 4 people respond. We interviewed all 4 people. We gave each candidate 90 minutes to discuss the position. We asked each candidate the same 11 questions, and we allowed each candidate to ask as many questions as they had for us. We were debriefing at the end of each interview, and we debriefed at the end of all 4 interviews. And the committee's recommendation as a result of those interviews is that the committee recommended Brian Leclerc as our first choice for harbor master, that John Dean was our second choice, and that John Wynn was the third choice. And I say choice because the process now is that those 3 names, if the commission votes to approve the recommendation of the committee, will then be sent to the governor, and the governor will appoint the next harbor master. So without getting into any of the personnel issues, are there any questions by commissioners who are on the phone? If there are no questions, then could I have a motion to accept the search committee's recommendation of Brian Leclerc, John Dean, and John Wynn as names to be transmitted to the governor's office for appointment to the position of harbor master? Jack moved, Harry seconded. Any discussion? Commissioners, any discussion? Any questions? Okay, all in favor? Hello?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 Great, thank you. Anyone opposed? Super. We will then transmit those names on to the governor. Thank you, everyone. The next item of business is the Lower Wharf. Mr. Stedman is here.
I looked for him after an executive session, and I sent him a text telling him he could come back into the room, but I don't know where he is.
Okay, well, he'll be back. And why don't we then move ahead to the mooring committee, and Jeff will report when he returns to the room.
The mooring committee met on September 15th, actually at a live meeting in Sullivan Independence Hall. Attending were Kim and Harry and Jeff Engborg, Jeff Stedman, Jeff Engborg, and myself, the harbor master.
And Betty.
And is that Betty back?
Betty's back.
Good,
No,
okay.
I am.
Good, thank you.
I'm sorry, guys, I'm late. Traffic was horrendous, but I'm here.
Wonderful.
All right. The harbor master position, of course, is vacant, so no harbor master. We discussed the waiting list. We also reviewed an online mooring listing showing the 4 wait list applicants who have applied after the departure of the harbor master, and had a discussion about the process on the system, just pending those while we wait for the harbor master's appointment from the governor. Kim reported on the interview process that was being undertaken, and we just made a decision about that process a week ago. And then Jeff Engborg reported that there was minimal impact to moorings from the recent storm. He did report that there was a mid-wall moored vessel that slid around 15 feet, and they're going to be repositioning that tackle. Another vessel had an issue with its stern mooring, but there was no damage as a result of that. That was a error in the tying up securely of the stern mooring on that vessel. And he also reported that Pequot Yacht Club assisted the town's resources in recovery of a small powerboat that had gotten submerged at Yee Yacht Yard. Our meeting adjourned 35 minutes after it began. That's my report.
Any questions for Jack about the mooring committee? The the storm, any? Okay, since Jeff has still not returned to our room, why don't we go ahead with the rules and procedures? Jack?
Last evening, we had an opportunity for Jeff and Kim and I to speak to the RTM committee meeting that meets a week before the monthly RTM meeting, reviewing the recommended Chapter 24 amendments that were recommended by the Harbor Management Commission. A number of the people had previously heard from us on this who were in attendance last evening because they were on the L&A committee of the Harbor Management Commission, and so this is a second go around for those folks. There were no questions at all last night, and the moderator of the RTM suggested that we could be available next week when they have this on their agenda to take any questions. But my sense was there wasn't a real concern about there being any issues around our request. So I'm hopeful that next week we get a vote from the RTM. Kim, is that your understanding?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And then that would become part of the updated town code, Chapter 24.
So Eric and Sam, is our understanding of what happens that now next week there will be a vote? How does that, from your experience on the RTM, how does that work after we've appeared before the various groups of the RTM twice now?
Well, the L&A committee, and
right.
then yesterday the meeting that meets before, which I think is heads of committees,
right?
And then next is the monthly meeting.
Is that?
Yeah. Hi, this is Sam. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can, Sam. Thanks you.
Sam.
Sorry, I've been dropped a couple of times, so I'm just jumping in. And I think I heard Jack saying that if the committees met and it was an agenda item and they all passed on it and said they're fine with it, and then it doesn't even go for a vote to the RTM. That's my understanding. I mean, that's because they had the L&A meeting and then they had the committee meeting.
Right.
And if there was no questions or objections to it, it typically would say that it passed by unanimous consensus. That's typically what happens, but I may be wrong. It may come up again, but typically that's the case.
Oh,
okay.
Well,
unless, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, that's then I will. I'll leave it to my other former RTM member to say what he thinks.
Well, I haven't looked
Eric?
at the RTM agenda, but for the next meeting. But I would imagine that if it did go to the floor for a vote, there probably would be opportunity for public comment. But I don't know if what the rules are with what the moderator is charged with, if it will end up being an item for discussion or a vote or public comment or not. I'm really not sure. I'd have to look at the agenda.
Okay.
Right.
She invited us to attend, but she didn't. She said if you'd like to attend.
And it's on the agenda, but we don't.
Okay.
If it's on the agenda and you'd like to attend, you probably would be there to answer any questions if the public had, or if the RTM members had any questions that came up last minute for you to provide any information, and then they'd go to a vote.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's my understanding if it was in committee and there was and it was voted in committee unanimously, or if there was a quorum for each committee, then it wouldn't go. But if it is an agenda item, it's there, then my recommendation is that Jack, you, and Kim be present to answer any question. I doubt you'll have any questions because I hope I'm not speaking out of school here. If there's other items that are very pressing on the agenda, there'll be a lot of focus on that, and I think this has been very well vetted, and I think there seems to be, and if the moderator is saying that they don't really see an issue, but being present is probably wise.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
We'll do that.
we'll
I
do
think
that.
all three of us, if we can, to be there. 'Cause
Yeah, yeah.
Jeff can bring, and in our first presentation did bring
Sure.
very important to historic context to answer some questions.
Of course.
Good.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you. We were intending on being there, but not quite sure what an invitation and the invitation meant. So really appreciate that. The Jeff did make a great suggestion last night, and after the meeting, we forwarded the survey results and the presentation, the July 20 presentation that's on the website, to all the RTM members. So hopefully by next week all of them will know more about the Harbor Commission than they ever imagined they would ever know. So
we just opened up Pandora's box for questions next week.
Right.
But thanks for your guidance, guys. Thanks very much. Okay, Lower Wharf, Mr. Stedman. And before Jeff reports, I just want to report that I talked to Devin Santa this week and asked him to give us a proposal sometime in the next couple of weeks so that I could forward it on to everyone and that everyone would have a chance to review a proposal well before our next meeting. So we have no proposal tonight, but Jeff has had several conversations with the town engineer, and he's got some things to report.
Well, the report is that we're still trying to determine the value of the work that would be included in the raised proposal for the new permit. Because I think we all agreed that especially if another $50,000 is required of sediment tests to put the material in Long Island Sound, and that the cost, and that would be added to Race's estimate of the permitting, preparing the permitting application and getting the permit, that the value to be achieved by that dredging may not be. We don't have the money in place now to be able to do the new permitting and the dredging work, and the costs of the dredging work are unknown, and even the ability to do it is unknown because it depends on capping. So it was the commission's direction that the new permit would not include the dredging between the end of the launching ramp and the channel, and that our first thought was that then it would only include replacement of the piers, the deteriorated piers at the lower wharf, any work needed to fix the wall itself at the lower wharf, and the work needed to complete the boat launching ramp project as designed, which would include repositioning the two last planks that are in there now at a better angle, and adding the 11th or 12th plank. I forget how many there are. I have to look at the drawing. Then it was suggested, and I don't know, Mark, if it was your suggestion, that maybe that wouldn't have value. So I talked with Mr. Cathcart, the marina superintendent. He thinks it would have value, and that he's basing that on comments he's received from boaters that use the ramp, although that's not a scientific, survey of all of the boaters. We've talked about it with Mr. Hurley, the town engineer. He's going to also speak with the town's public works foreman. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'll just say George, to discuss how they did the work the last time, and did they excavate material, and did they take it away when they put in the planks that are there now. I don't think that they did. So we've also talked with Race that there's likely to be at least 2 additional samples that have to be taken of the material at the end of the boat launching ramp to get permission to put the new plank in. But in order to figure out how many samples, and that would be told to us by DEEP, we have to estimate the quantity and also identify where we would take the material. So those are other questions to ask. And if we're going to do this, we would have to dewater a certain amount of material on the boat ramp site itself. We talked about this with a representative of the Sasquatch group recently, who did not deny it or the possibility, without saying it's something that could be discussed, and he didn't think that it's necessarily something that we should think is going to be posed by the neighbors. If we could explain it properly and have confidence, they would have confidence that we're not going to contaminate the environment. So these are all, we've been investigating this. I've also talked about this with the Port Authority, with Mr. Salvatore at the Connecticut Port Authority, because we have that substantial grant that's still in place, and we would be using money from that grant to do the new permitting. But then we have more work to do to understand the benefits of what we're asking for. And if we end up all we're asking for is just the permit to replace the piers at the lower wharf and fix the wall at the lower wharf, that wasn't what the grant was initially intended for. It was for dredging. So we have to. There's a lot of things we don't have the answers yet for them, but the town is helping us, both Mr. Cathcart and Mr. Hurley. And I think that by the next meeting we'll hopefully have a suggestion or a recommendation to the commission. Sorry for going on for 10 minutes about that.
Well, that's good. Thank you, Jeff. Any questions from commissioners? Okay, so hopefully we'll have something for you to take a look at first part of October-ish, and then we can discuss that at the next meeting. Moving ahead to sand management, Mark and Jeff?
No, we're continuing to work with the Corps of Engineers, and we provided information that we've assembled from the State Library concerning the history of the construction of the jetty and the wall along the harbor. And we're looking forward to the Corps reviewing that and having a meeting on site as soon as it's possible to do that. And I think, Kim, you mentioned that we also need to involve the Country Club of Fairfield so that they're aware of the work that we're doing and that they can continue to be a good partner in what we're doing, and they know what we're doing.
Right, and we've asked Jim Bradley to help us make sure that the Country Club knows what we're up to and is part of the process. Any questions on sand management? Okay. The only old business left is plan update. We have not met or really done anything in the last month. We've been busy with harbor master searches and other activities, and hopefully we will be meeting again soon. We do have some new business, and on my report you saw that we received a letter from Stephen Delco asking no dogs allowed sign be posted at the lower wharf, and he also sent that same letter to the Parks and Rec Department, and so I've asked Jeff to bring us all up to date on what we know about our responsibility to maintain the lower wharf, particularly with reference to the part of the lower wharf of the property that was donated by the McMahons in, I think, 2019, spring or summer of 2019.
Well, it's like, hope people don't mind me talking again about
this. No, please, Jeff.
This is very interesting. It goes back to 2018. Well, actually, it goes back further than that.
Can I just, to refresh my recollection, this is the piece of property that people are using to access the water with their dogs?
Correct.
This is that rocky area.
Yeah. On a telephone, can't see the
right.
photo.
We've had discussions about
the area we're talking about.
It's the southernmost piece of the lower wharf property that is newly town property.
Newly town property, and without going through all the history, but there was a public access easement along the edge of that property. And so some of this, I may not be real precise, but we were involved in this for many years. and the owner of the property over which that easement is placed was concerned that people were walking on his property when they were using the easement to get to that little beach area that's south of the lower wharf. So he proposed a land swap to eliminate the easement, and he would provide the little beach area to the south of the lower wharf to the town. And we discussed this at length. And the first, and there were public hearings, and there was a public hearing of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission that we commented on in a letter of April 8, 2019. I won't go over all of these comments, but we have all the record of this. But at that time, the commission agreed that to submit a favorable recommendation concerning this proposal, which was the elimination of the access or the easement over the owner's property, the adjoining owner's property, and the town accepting the little beach area. Of course, one of the concerns we had was it was rise to sea level. It might not be a beach in a few years, but that's another thing. So the commission agreed to submit a favorable recommendation provided that all of the questions raised by the commission in a previous letter to the applicant's engineer were addressed to the satisfaction of the town attorney, including whether court approval would be required concerning the proposed elimination of the public access easement, and whether the shore protection structures proposed to be transferred to the town, which is the riprap on the south side of the lower wharf, were properly permitted. Another provision would be that the conditions in the original easement, including the provision limiting future structures on the water lot, which was where the easement was, would be maintained, and that a smaller wall that does not interfere with public views be considered, and that any applicable Americans with Disability Act requirements be met, including requirements relative to the proposed stairs that the applicant said he would provide on the lower wharf on the south side to have access to the beach, and that the commission's role, this is a significant part, for management of the property, should it be acquired by the town, accepted by the town, be defined. So it was recognized that it might be logical for the commission to have management responsibility over this property, beach property, since the commission has management responsibilities over the lower wharf. But we never heard a response back from this letter from the town attorney. We do know, though, that the Sasquatch group wrote a letter dated. So our letter was. Our letter was April 8, 2019. The Sasquatch group wrote its own letter concerning this proposed land swap and seawall construction, dated May 21st, 19. And that was before the RTM met in June to approve a motion to approve this property transfer. But there was nothing in that motion of the RTM having to do with who would manage the property. But it referred to authorizing the first selectman to prepare any additional documents that were needed to complete the property. So we can't find any record of, in the minutes of the RTM as to who is the manager of the property, whether it is the Harbor Commission or someone else. Then there's also an interesting, in November of 2019, the Historic District Commission met to review requests by the owner of the property to build a new wall there. And that was a major concern of the Sasquatch group, that when building this new wall, that the owner not extend the property any farther waterward than it is now. And when they build the wall, they put the existing riprap back so that the property looks just the way it does now. Now, in those minutes of November of 2019, the Historic District Commission approves apparently part of what the owners asked for, but doesn't approve the other part of it. And that's not clear. So we need to do more research before the commission would take any action, I think, to recommend signage for this piece of property, because we don't know if the commission is actually responsible for doing that. And also understand, talking with Sasquatch recently, in the course of what we were talking about with the town boatyard, that any signs need historic district, commission approval.
What is the complaint exactly?
Well, there've been two complaints. Two meetings ago, was it in August or was it in July? The attorney, John Fallon, representing the McMahons, wrote to Betty Gabriel, complaining about people launching boats from that little beach, the dog walkers, people not cleaning up after their dogs. And then this last month, we, the commission, received a letter from Stephen Delco complaining that the dog walkers are not picking up after their dogs, and the dogs should not be allowed on that property. And that we, the commission, should be putting up signs telling people that that dogs aren't allowed. And the Parks and Rec Department gets some of those complaints as well. And the Parks and Rec Department has said a couple of times that it's our responsibility, not their responsibility. So nobody seems to really know who's responsible for that piece of property.
What we don't have in the research that we've done this past week is any documents that were prepared by the first selectman, as the RTM authorized the selectmen to prepare any additional documents needed to accept this property. So we should ask for those documents as well. But we never received, the commission never received a response to its letter asking the town attorney at the time to confirm, that our understanding of those matters listed in the letter. And the commission was never informed that it was given responsibility to manage that little piece of property.
I guess I feel like there's two questions here. The first question is the one you're focusing on, which is whose responsibility is it? I'm not clear on what authority we would have to prohibit dogs from the public property. And I know the town has rules with respect to seasonal use of beaches with dogs, but I'm not aware that I'm not sure where that is regulated in town code or wherever.
Exactly.
That has that seasonal role. And I don't know to what extent that carries on to grassy areas that are unrelated to beaches. I just don't know
Exactly.
what authority we would be doing this limitation of dogs
Exactly.
and to what extent we can do that.
Yes, and
Exactly.
how would it be enforced if it's not based on an existing or a new regulation?
Clearly,
Right,
right. So
right.
we can't exceed any kind of town regulations around this either.
Right.
So even if it were our responsibility, I guess the second question would be worth knowing for whoever is responsible for this. We need to understand what the limits are of what we can prevent and allow.
Right, exactly.
If it came, there were no dogs, it would have to be posted, no dogs.
Right,
Well, it'd have to be based on some kind of a rule too.
Yeah.
I think.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
not aware of that.
right. I don't know, and I wouldn't, until we know, are we really responsible, yeah. So, I believe that the First Select Woman's Office has asked the town attorney to look into it. But I've heard nothing else except the two complaints. So, any questions, commissioners?
Hi, this is Sam Cargill. There's, I don't want to get into sort of the emotion that exists on what the McMahons did to their property. They followed, all protocols. They were in front of every town body, and the project moved forward. But there's a lot of emotion around dog walkers and recreation down at the Lower Wharf. And I think as a group, we need to, as a group, I don't know, I think that we should have a motion to say that this is up to the First Select Woman and the town attorney. And or I don't know if that's necessary. That's just really a comment. And the second is this gentleman who wrote this letter, is he a resident on the Lower Wharf area? Is he a homeowner?
I have no idea, Sam.
Okay. It's just that living in that neighborhood and understanding the sort of legacy emotion around what the McMahons did to their property, and their being gracious and giving the property to the town. So this is a tough one, but I think I just want to reiterate what you have said, Madam Chairwoman, that this needs to be referred back to the town attorney and First Selectwoman's office.
Okay. I think that already has happened, Sam. I think that I heard from, as I recall, from Jen Carpenter that matter has been referred to the town attorney, but I'm not quite sure. I didn't see what the referral actually was, so I don't know what the questions that were asked, what questions were asked of the town attorney. I've mentioned our letter of our April letter a couple of times in communications with the First Selectwoman's office and the Parks and Rec Department. So.
Well, I guess if it's still an open discussion, if it does fall on this commission to make a decision about this, it would be helpful to get some guidance as to what rules exist today, what's the framework that we should be, that we have authority to have to put any restrictions in place. And I don't know what that might be. I think it's quite possible that we could be responsible for making decisions around this complaint, but I don't know what town rules apply here.
And as I mentioned to Anthony Calabrese, I don't even know, the commission doesn't even know how we would go about finding out. I mean, how do you go about finding out what the ordinances are that might apply to this property, pre-existing ordinances that would apply to this property, and is it, if
town council?
Yeah, so, I mean, the First Selectwoman's office is aware that it's an issue, so, I don't know that any more action is required of us at this point, but I just wanted it to be clear to everybody kind of that issue is out there, and that to the best of our ability, we can't figure out if we're responsible, and if we are responsible, what those responsibilities might include. And I guess the other question, there were deed restrictions, were there not, Jeff, in the original purchase of the lower Wharf? And wasn't one of the questions that we asked whether or not those deed restrictions would apply to the new property?
Right, we never received answers to our
So we don't know,
questions.
we don't even know that, so.
That was about a building. Was that a building?
Yeah.
Was a pergola, or some discussion about a building on?
Yeah.
And there was also talk about the height of vegetation that would be allowed to might block views, and so there's just more. We don't have enough information.
Yeah.
We couldn't make, the commission couldn't make a decision.
Has the complainant gotten any response? Just to be responsive?
I believe that Anthony Calabrese said to Mr. Delco that he would tell the commission. He would forward his complaint to the commission. But Mr. Delco himself wrote the commission as well, so.
So then it would.
And that's where it sits.
It would seem that at this moment, you should have some response to him.
I mean, just at the end of the day, I think Tim, you're right. This issue itself is going to establish what the proper governance is of the Lower Wharf and the responsibilities that we bear. That'll be interesting. And I'm going to put myself back on mute. I'm walking on the street in New York City.
We can hear the traffic.
Yes, hi,
Okay.
Kim. Hi, Kim. It's Eric.
Hi, Eric.
I'm looking at the Parks and Rec rules and regulations for beaches, and obviously, I guess because this property is very unique, it doesn't really fall into that category. Though there are mentions of open spaces, but nothing about Lower Wharf. It does talk about Southport Harbor and swimming and things like that, but it seems to me that regarding any deed restrictions we're unaware of in this particular situation. There are going to be, I think, some general rules of open space that the town, I guess, enforces, all over town, generally speaking. However, I think there might be some kind of overlap with, we might have our own ability to decide or make recommendations, I think. I'm not sure, but I would suspect that there might be certain things specific to this property that we are able to recommend as part of the general rules. So if we wanted to, say, permit dogs, year-round versus the beaches only for, certain months, maybe we're able to do something like that. Because, I know that we have, there's, no diving allowed off the lower wharf. There's no swimming in the channel, and that there are certain things that maybe we need to define. But I think the Parks and Rec might not be 100% in their, the lower wharf being in their purview, and so therefore there may be some unique, specific rule situations we might be able to clarify, or because there's really no signage down there as far as the definitive list like you'd see in other open spaces. What are you allowed to do, or are you not allowed to do? So it sounds like we might need to just gather that information and maybe get a point of view from the town attorney.
Right,
and,
I think you're right.
What is our jurisdiction? What are we able to do? And since it is a well-loved area for dogs and open space and all that, it is a gray area. But we do need to see, what is the town's rules and regulations on open spaces all over town. But for that specific space, if it's in our jurisdiction, what can we do, or what would we propose to really make it official that, hey, here's a list of rules that everyone needs to abide by. It doesn't sound to me that the definitive list exists right now.
Right, I think you're right. Not only don't we know the extent of our jurisdiction, we don't know, there is no list.
I'd also be curious about what the rules on this point are for Perry Green, which is right down the street.
Right.
And it's another green grassy area.
Right.
And what are the rules there with respect to dogs that govern?
Right.
And why would they be different between those two areas apart from the little sandy rocky area?
Right.
When the town acquired the lower wharf, and the Harbor Commission made a substantial donation of funds that came from permit fees that were accumulated over several years. But it was understood, it's in the deed. The commission sat with the town attorney at that time in the old town hall to work out some of the provisions in the deed, which included the management by the Harbor Management Commission of the lower wharf. And therefore the commission had the authority to make rules and procedures for use of the lower wharf, just like the mooring rules and procedures, with publishing it in the newspaper and having a hearing. But the commission never did that, and so there was never a urgency to do that. And then this additional property adds to the complexity of the issue.
So maybe what we should do is look for answers to our April 2019 questions, and then put together a group to identify the rules that need to be in place down there.
Yeah, and because it is such a unique area and has such tradition and it's been kind of running automatic for a long time, we probably would like to just carefully review what is our jurisdiction, or what are we allowed to do, and try to make everybody happy, but just have everything listed as to what are the responsibilities really of us for that property that's separate from the town.
Right.
Or from
Right.
Parks
Right.
and Rec.
Right. I think you're right, Eric. I think you're right.
No one has bonfires down there, but there's no sign that says no bonfires.
Correct, but actually, it's interesting that you ask that, because I got an email from a group that was holding a fundraiser across the street, across from the yacht club, that wanted to process down to, actually they're talking about Perry Green, so we were okay, but I said we don't have jurisdiction, but process down to Perry Green with a self-contained fire pit that they would then add fuel to once they got to Perry Green. So, it's only a matter of time till somebody asks us for the same kinds of guidance relative to the lower wharf. So, clearly it's an issue that at some point we're going to have to deal with, and if we can find out ahead of time what we can and can't do, that would be very helpful.
Right, because right now it doesn't seem like we can do anything. I mean, we don't know the details, we don't know the facts.
Public health issue. I mean, I think that could be acted on by, if they knew who did it, the police could deal with that.
Well, I think that's the other question, that, who's going to enforce our rules? I mean, how does that work? So,
yeah, you'd have to have a
goes to enforcement.
all the time.
Kim, I'm going to have to drop. I'm going into a 6:00 meeting.
okay.
Apologies. And then we can draw straws and see who's going to put up the no dog sign.
Exactly.
Thank you, everybody.
Exactly. You're on first.
No, I put up the no
You're
diving or
leaving.
swimming
You're
sign.
leaving.
Got experience.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, so more on the status of Lower Wharf to come, unless anybody wants to propose a specific action right now. I think we just make some inquiries and see if the town attorney has gotten the request from the First Select Woman's office.
No exceptions.
No exceptions?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Jeff?
Old business having to do with the Aquarian proposal, perhaps?
Okay, the Aquarian proposal?
The Aquarian water diversion proposal that we were concerned might affect the flow of water in the Mill River. DEEP has issued, and this was the subject of a public hearing, and the commission provided thoughtful comments and concerns. DEEP has issued a proposed final decision which would approve Aquarian's application just as Aquarian has submitted it. And interestingly, in DEEP's proposed final decision, they refer to the Harbor Management Commission's letter.
Cool.
And make the point that the commission's recommendations are not binding. And they refer to the court case in Greenwich, which is objectionable. So this is the first, not the first, but an example of how that court case could affect harbor management authorities in the future, and how we need to really pursue a legislative remedy as the town of Greenwich appeals the decision. That's sort of an aside to this, but also we understand that the town there's a provision for, I don't know if the right word is appeal, but I'll use the word appeal this proposed final decision to the DEEP commissioner, and to request oral arguments before the DEEP commissioner to express concern with this proposed final decision, because it's a proposed final decision because the final decision rests with the commissioner. So that process is going to proceed now, and I don't know what the role might be for the Harbor Commission, but we should be aware of this and submit comments as appropriate. But there again, Aquarian asked for a 25-year permit, and we felt that was excessive. And I shouldn't try to make humorous remarks, but we felt that there needed to be some discussion of conditions downstream of the dam, so you might know in the future if what they're doing affects the conditions downstream. But the utilities' argument was there was no need to do that because they wouldn't have any impacts downstream. So we'll keep alert about this, and maybe there's a need to do something in the next meeting.
Okay. Okay. Any questions about that? The Aquarian permit apparently okayed and the town efforts to appeal? All right, Commissioners, I think that unless anybody has any other new business, Jack?
I move.
Oh, Jack's moving to adjourn.
I'll second.
Mark and Harry are tied to second it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. We're adjourned until our October meeting, and I will hopefully have a race proposal to you at least a week ahead of that, so you have a chance to take a look at it. Great meeting. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Kim.
Yep. See you in October.
Good night.